We are. I'm
Yep.
just hoping I don't hear feedback.
Yeah.
If I do, I have to go click on things quickly.
Yeah, if you do, just click the mute button on the video itself. It should be okay. All right, I'm gonna click it here. 3, 2, 1. We'll see what it does. All right, it's your open source advocate, and we are here today for an IT Roundtable, and I've got a few guests with me, which is great, and we're going to be doing a dual live stream. So we've also got at IBRACORP, and I'm going to let him kind of go through his intro here.
Hey guys, welcome back to another IBRACORP stream, and we're just tuning in with awesome open source, and we've got ScottiBYTE and Chris joining us as well for the live stream. So pleasure to have you guys aboard.
Absolutely. So Scott, you've got the ScottiBYTE channel, and you've posted several things, you know, that kind of cross over some of the topics that I've covered in the past. Why don't you give a little introduction about yourself there?
Okay. This is Scott. I run the ScottiBYTE channel. I'm a retired computer systems architect, worked about 36 years in the industry. And during my career, I designed hosting systems for servers, storage, and networks and worldwide data centers. And I did a lot of deployment of virtualization, containerization, and software as a service to meet customer requirements for application hosting. And the reason I started doing the YouTube channel was to try to give back a little bit. About the last 5 years, I've been doing some consulting for small office, home office implementations, security enhancement, technology modernization. I kind of emphasize the concept of data center in a box. Interesting note, back in about 2007 is when I left Windows as a desktop daily driver. And the reason is I was running Windows Vista in 2007, and it ended up resulting in a major data loss. And that's when I started with Ubuntu 7.04 at the desktop. So interestingly, my desktop, I upgraded ever since. And of course, I moved to different hardware, different machines, different disk drives, and so on. And I moved my image from spinning drives to SSDs and eventually over to NVMe. And I converted the disk structure at one point in time from MBR FAT over to EFI GUID.
I'm working in Microsoft environments for my customers. Also having pretty large migration projects, moving from on-prem to the Azure cloud and stuff like that.
That's very sad news, Chris. Very sad news.
I can see over here in the chat, it looks like people are losing the audio and the video a little bit. Why don't you?
Yeah, I stopped it. Sorry, and it's coming back up. So give it just a little bit of time. Should come back up here in just a second. Sorry, Chris.
No, sorry, no problem.
Yeah, mate. So Microsoft, that's an interesting transition for your customers. Then
I'm not finished yet, because of course I would be wrong here in this this open source environment. But at the same time, a couple of years ago, I started with open source in my own environment. First privately used. Then I founded in 2016. I founded a charity organization, and all the IP is now based on open source. So what I'm using, part of my desktop, which is still Windows, but mostly I also have some Linux-based desktops or laptops. But my own IT is exclusively open source, which means I have my own. I'm running my own mail server. I'm running my own Jitsi Meet server. I have Rocketchat, and so the goal is actually, and I'm offering this also to some smaller customers, to have these the cloud as a service, more or less. Don't forget, here in Germany, GDPR is a common problem. Which means you have to make sure that your data is stored actually inside of Europe. And of course, if I offer these open source cloud services, on my own on-prem hardware or virtual machines, whatever you want to call it,
You'd be compliant with that.
I'm compliant with that, and so I have some lawyers or medical environments which are running in my environment, and that's all open source. And I
That's
see
awesome.
I see the benefit of open source every day I use it. But again, large companies are running here in Germany mostly really almost exclusively Microsoft services, and that's what I have to do to earn my daily pay. Yeah.
You know,
So
Yeah,
I love that, but it's true, right? The thing you have to remember is that at the end of the day, we all have to make a living. So you know, you work where the money is, and so right now that's Microsoft, and that's the way it's been for 30, 40 years, right? So I don't think that's going to change tomorrow, but I hope channels like mine and like IBRACORP and like ScottiBYTEs and people coming on and talking like you are, Chris, I hope that helps people who are looking to move to open source and kind of realizing, well, I know Microsoft's the big guy in the crowd, but at the same time, there's options out there. That's my goal. So I love to hear that you're giving those options to some of your clients, even though Microsoft still kind of runs the world from a lot of aspects. So that's pretty awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Another thing we've noticed, I think, is that now in the last couple of years, we're starting to notice a lot more software as a service, as Chris mentioned. And more software as a service basically means we don't have desktop applications. We have applications hosted in the cloud. And just remember, the cloud just means this runs on someone else's computer. So if you have applications running in the cloud, it basically means your desktop operating system at that point, the applications have become operating system agnostic. And I realize it's going to be a few years before all the applications be agnostic. But basically, at the Windows desktop, if you go around to companies and you ask them, what is it you're running? What is it that's proprietary? And I guess I'm being a little bit of a straight man here because that's a topic that we're going to move into that Brian set up for us here today.
Absolutely. That's some good point of views, and I think that's something we are trying to actively promote in our communities. And people like Chris, who may not be necessarily doing the content, but they're part of that community as well. And we all sort of share the same value of how good open source is and where we sort of want to see it go. So I'm looking forward to this today, and I'm happy that we're here and we can have a chat about it.
Absolutely. I'm excited that you guys wanted to do this with me for sure. So I just want to say thank you for one. I know, Chris, it's like 2:30 in the morning or something where you're at. A lot of you guys I know around the world, it's super late or super early. So I appreciate you joining us. And some of it's a Saturday, some of it's a Sunday. But I really wanted to do this. So thanks, guys, for joining me on it. Definitely.
No, I think it's a great opportunity that you provide this for us. So thanks to you too. But you got one really hard point. Since all these services are really cloud based, you can really interchange whatever client you're using. So when I'm in my own environment, in my open source environment, server based environment, I can use any client. I can use, if somebody really shows up with a Mac. Well, sorry, I don't like this environment, but they can just use all the services at the same moment as they use a Linux machine or a Windows machine. It doesn't make any difference. They don't need to install any additional software or whatever, because it's either they need a browser or they get a little app which is available for any platform on the world. So that makes it so much easier. And if you're stuck in an environment like with Microsoft, you're stuck with Microsoft tools, and you get what you want, what they want you to have. It's not that you have a variety of choice. I can use any kind of tool which gives me a lot of more specs or not. What I want to choose from, and that's something which is an open source feature. And the people on the one side say, well, I don't know what to use. On the other side, they have the choice which they can cope with. Actually, they can handle the choice that is given by open source environments.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think it puts a lot of people off coming from proprietary software. Usually they are well developed because of the amount of funding and resources that they have at their fingertips. So naturally, people find it a lot easier to pick up and go. But the more we can promote people to use this open source stuff, I think we can only see it get better. So hopefully that starts to change. People's attitudes start to change as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll give you an example just shortly.
I think we better start off with the first topic first, and maybe we'll get around to doing that. What do you think, Brian?
No, I think that's great. With the topics, and I hope these things will come up a little bit naturally, anyways. But we can always come back and do some chatter afterwards for sure too. So,
we should get some good questions in our chats as well. So
yeah, if you guys need to answer questions real quick in chats, go for it. I'll kind of tell my group what's going on here. So we're going to do a few rounds with the guys that are here in the online stuff going on right now for the stream, and basically we've got 3 rounds and maybe a bonus round. We'll kind of watch time because I don't want to keep everybody up so late that they can't they don't get to sleep before their next day. But our first round is really going to be, tell me about your daily driver open source software and why that's your choice over something proprietary that's also out there. So I think really from a personal use, professional use, I'd like options for both of those things. If you have daily drivers that you use in open source, if you don't have one for professional use just because of the way your job is, then bring up that you don't have one for that. I think second round we're going to do something similar, but in this case we're going to say basically, and tell me if I'm getting too far from the mic, I apologize. Do the same thing, but for a proprietary piece of software that's your daily driver for something, and why you're using that over an open source alternative today, because it's interesting to hear. And then third round is really, something you'd like to see with a good open source option, but something you haven't really found what you felt is a good open source option yet, or that you don't know of any open source options for it. And then kind of the bonus round, if we get to do it, your top 5 things that somebody should know before they get into self-hosting any kind of software, open source, closed source, proprietary, doesn't matter. If you can self-host it, I'd love to know your kind of top 5 things that you think that people should get into. So if that sounds good to you guys, I'd like to jump into those, and we'll just kind of hit it one by one. If you guys don't mind, I'll take the last spot on this first round, and then we'll kind of shift who starts each round, if that's cool.
Go for it, mate. Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to take the last spot on this one. Scott, you want to start off with round 1, and then we'll move to Chris, and then IBRACORP, and then we'll kind of juggle it around for each round.
Okay, that sounds good. So in my daily driver software for open source, I tend to have kind of 2 number ones. And my first number one would be that I self-host Bitwarden, because with all the web-based software, there can usually be all kinds of authentication out there. There's hundreds of websites that I end up connecting to at this point. Some of them are mine, some of them are public websites. They all have usernames, they all have passwords, and if you're smart, they all have 2FA authentication. And so Bitwarden handles all the web-based authentication for that. And so it really is kind of the gold standard for me to be able to cache all those passwords, and it's very, very safe in the way it handles everything. My second kind of number one is Apache Guacamole. And the reason for that is because Apache Guacamole does for server instances what Bitwarden does for website instances. It's basically used to provide a portal to all of the locally hosted server instances, usernames, passwords, and SSH keys for all of your self-hosted or even cloud-hosted services that you have. And so those 2 to me are both number one, and they're critical to doing any self-hosting. Next would be Joplin Server and also Joplin Clients. So Joplin Server is, there's several different ways to replicate the data that's in Joplin. If you don't know what Joplin is an open source note-taking program. And it's critical to document all of the things that you do in your home lab, or if you have some consulting customers, same thing is true. And there's so many notes that are required for the care and feeding of your infrastructure. And then kind of as a side joke there, hey, you might want to document this stuff because you don't know who you're going to leave this mess behind for that might want to figure it out later on. And then going on, I would say WireGuard access for my network remotely. I actually have 2 WireGuard servers, and one is for my main network, and I run it in a VM, and it provides access to my main network and my actually 5 other VLANs. And then I also have a dedicated WireGuard portal for my LabNet VLAN, which is my testing VLAN that I'll get people into when I'm trying to show them how to do things a lot of times, or if they want a server to log into and try something out. And in line with using the WireGuard or not using the WireGuard, actually, remotely is very important to me. So if you haven't looked at remotely, remotely is a way to support remote customers and friends, to guide them through fixes to network and system problems, where you can remote control their systems or they can remote control one of your systems. And so often what I'll do is I'll get in a self-hosted Jitsi meet and I'll use it in conjunction with remotely, and it works out really well when I'm having a session with somebody. So then other than that, we have the generalized tools, things like Nginx Proxy Manager for reverse proxy and service management, to access the self-hosted services. It's a portal that kind of protects things and yet provides access. And then obviously I have a discourse server, a couple of PHP bulletin board servers. My website's based on WordPress. I've got a Rocketchat server like Brian does. I run Plex, Jellyfin, SyncThing, and I go on and on. I've just got all kinds of good stuff. So that's where I stand.
Yeah. And you'd consider that all your daily drivers, Scott?
Those are the really daily drivers. I mean, there's hardly a day that I won't get into all of those programs and use them repeatedly.
I think that's a prerequisite of becoming a self-hoster, Brian. If we can add that to the description, we have to be absolutely addicts because we can't get enough stuff that we want to install and play with.
Well, that's it. Yeah, it's always the next big thing,
but
right?
it does get really bad, guys. I mean, here we
it's
can.
A serious problem, man. Serious problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an addiction, guys. I mean, look, this is how bad it can get, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
so those are all the things that I've got hosted inside my network right now.
If you watch my videos, you see my dashboard at least once on each video, I'm sure, and you can see that it grows every time that I do another video, and it's because the videos that I make, almost all this software that I show you guys, I end up using it for something. Now, there's some things that I make a video and I think it's great, but it's not something I have a use for any particular reason at the time. But some of them I've gone back and added later just because it made so much sense. So yeah, I totally understand. All right, Chris, what do you got for us?
Just preparing my Heimdall. Well, mostly it's based on the Nextcloud services, which is of course file syncing, but I use this also to synchronize all my contacts and all my calendar entries and stuff like that. And inside of the Nextcloud, you also have the possibility to use OnlyOffice, which means you can just click on a document and you can online edit it as you have in Word Online or whatever. The same with Excel and all the Office environments, which is very nice and fine. I'm using my own mail server, hosting my own mail server based on Dovecot. A lot of things like AdGuard is there. By the way, my password manager is also included inside of the Nextcloud, which is also a nice thing to do and to have. I'm running my own bookmark server, so I synchronize my bookmarks also. So these are always on hand. I took to anonymize my browsing history.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using an own cloud. Sorry, a Google instance. So actually, I search over Google, and this takes all the information from Google without any tracking information and also without any ads. So I get the Google search information, but it's without any tracking inside of it. Yeah, Daily Driver is well, on my Windows desktop, it's Windows, but I'm also using MX Linux as a on laptop, which is Debian based. Very nice environment. And since I have my open source mail server, I can use any mail client. I also have Roundcube, and actually, I'm not using Roundcube mostly. Let's have a look. Yeah, the Roundcube I'm using. And to show you also what I'm using, maybe I can share also my screen. And that's what I'm hosting.
Yeah, nice.
Which is on Heimdall, which is also available for everybody. And you can see I have my monitoring with CheckMK, which is Nagios based. I have my own Jitsi. I'm not using Jitsi Meet from Jitsi itself. 8 and 8, I think they're called.
Mm-hmm.
I use Mesh Central instead of remotely, Scott. I love Mesh Central, which is very nice. You see some of the ideas I got from you, Brian. So I have my Navidrone because I don't have any videos which I want to watch. I just listen to music. That's fine. I'm running a couple of instances of Nextcloud, some of them for my business. The Nginx proxy manager also, of course, for all the SSL certificates, and all of this is mostly secured by Authelia. So I have MFA activated. Yeah, uptime, Puma, very nice things to see what's up and what is working. Backup is with your backup, and I'm
awesome.
using also URLs for shortening my URLs. I'm running a static server too, so that's a lot of stuff.
Just please tell me on Navidrome you've got Scorpion somewhere on there, right? Scorpions?
Of course I do.
Okay, great.
Sure I do.
as a German, I was hoping so. You know, I was got a little worried for a second, but yeah, that's awesome.
I've been to a couple of concerts from them.
Nice. That is awesome.
But I stopped because they're still going online, but they're so old, so you can really see that there's not the power.
Right. We all get older, man. We all get older. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, but I don't want to get off topic. So yeah, that's my Daily Driver.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, IBRACORP, you are up. I'm ready. I'm ready to hear this.
All right. Well, look, I think if we were going to add up everything that I've installed, I don't think we have enough time in the day, gentlemen. But I'll pick a couple and we'll see what you guys think, whether you're running them as well. One of my daily drivers at this point in time is Ghost. I use that for our website, but that's soon to change. We will be changing that soon. But that's served me well, and I think it's been a great open source product. I think what they offered was something different to something like WordPress, which, sure, it was free and open source, but I honestly didn't find it that useful. I found it bloated 90% of the time. But Ghost was always very nice and clean, so it's really well developed, I have to say. The next probably thing is a suite of media automation tools, and I know we've done a video before, Brian, with Sonar, Radar, all that sort of stuff. Those products and those apps have really made my life so much easier, and definitely projects worth, going to support. Even if it's pulling stuff off your old VHS tapes or whatever it case might be, having those sort of media tools has been fantastic. I know Scott was mentioning Plex and Jellyfin. I would say Jellyfin as well, been a fantastic application. I'll be honest, I don't see it on the same level of Plex yet. I do have
It's not.
some playback issues, yeah, and it really depends on the client. And it's just not the same. But I'm hoping the more we can support it, hopefully one day it will be. The other thing is, I think you mentioned a couple of examples for work environments. I know Rufus is a perfect example of something we use quite often, making our USB ISOs and things like that.
Yep.
Another one is probably, I'd say WireGuard. However, WireGuard for me, in the sense of Unraid, did have some issues at the beginning. Some people love it; they swear by it. I've tried it many times, and I just kept having issues. So then I ended up switching to something called Tailscale.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I don't think it's open source. I don't think Tailscale is open source. I have to check myself on that. But
Tailscale in and of itself isn't, but it runs WireGuard, right?
It runs WireGuard, correct? Yeah. So the technology of WireGuard is the part that I would say is definitely a daily driver, and a really handy tool actually to have. And finally, I would say accounting. That's something I've just looked at recently, is to try and manage a bit of our finances. So it's an accounting application, and that's free and open source. I think they have a paid option as well for like a pro cloud hosted option. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a pretty good tool as is.
That's awesome.
And those are probably my top ones at the moment.
I saw accounting a while back, and I don't know how you say it honestly, but I saw it and I was like, I want to do that one. It's interesting. I've had people ask me about things for managing money in the past and finance and things, so I probably need to tackle that one. There's a couple of others out there too that look interesting. I've never had a specific one requested that maybe I did. I'll have to go back and look. I try to keep notes for everything that everybody requests, and it just it ends up being this massive list that I have in Choplin notes actually. But yeah, accounting looks really interesting, so I'm glad you said that, because it's one that I want to look at too. I've got so many things on my list. Yeah. It's just not funny, and it's sometimes hard for me to like filter through and go, okay, I've got to pick one and focus. But yeah, there's just so much great stuff out there. All right, I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna pick a couple that I really every single day I'm in it, because some of those things like Sonar, LiDAR, they're great, but they really kind of run themselves. I don't have to do much. They just do their thing. And Jellyfin the same way, right? Me and my wife use Jellyfin at night to watch like our TV series that we like, but really, yeah. Other than that, I don't have to mess with those, so I wouldn't call them daily drivers. They're there for me every day, but they're not things I have to get in and do stuff with for the most part. So for the ones that I use as actual like everyday tools that I'm in all the time, Proxmox for sure, and lately especially, Proxmox is one that I'm in a lot, and then PF Sense lately has been one, because not for myself actually, but for a local place that I'm doing some work for, that I'm setting them up with a new server with Proxmox on it and PF Sense for their network and a bunch of updated network stuff in their offices and things. But yeah, I've been in those quite a bit lately. But Proxmox for me personally is definitely my daily driver type software. And then Dashi I've been using a lot lately since I did that video. I've really gotten into Dashi, and it's got just tons of stuff on it that I use. And then I would say probably Portainer.
Yeah, Dashi's a good one actually.
Yeah, Dashi's awesome. And then Portainer is one that I'm in every single day, if not just to check things. But I have Watchtower that tells me, hey, there's updates for these things, and then I go in and kind of check stuff, and then I'll run the updates. Some of them I let it update automatically, because I'm kind of like, if it gets messed up, it's no big deal, I can do it. But some of them kind of like, this is a finicky setup that I did on purpose, so I'm a little bit more cautious about when I let it update. But Portainer I probably use every single day, and I'll say, to me, that is a top-notch piece of open source software that I just cannot brag about enough. Like, I mean, seriously, if I was somebody who was going to be running a business, yeah, that that needed Docker or Kubernetes or any of those kind of things to run, like the first thing I would do is run to Portainer and say, I need a license. Or I need licenses for my people because we want to use this tool to administer all these things that we have to do. It is a seriously great tool, and there's other ones out there, I know that, but yeah, definitely Portainer. I like it, and I use it on pretty much everything. That's why I have the net script. The other one is that script that I made, the little Docker and Docker Compose, npm, and the Portainer Portainer agent. Yeah, Docky, that'd be great, right?
Ryan, I'm gonna get you converted over to Mosaic and get you on LXD containers.
So
there.
I saw that. I went and looked at it. It does look really nice, and I have one LXC container that I'm running now, and I run Pi-hole in it. I moved it off of a Raspberry Pi because I needed that Pi for something else, and I did. The wait time to get a new Raspberry Pi was ridiculous, so I said, all right, I'm going to move Pi-hole into an LXC container, and so I did that, and I got it to run great, and it runs perfect, which is awesome. So I've got one up and running, Scott. You're getting me there little by little. I just have to wrap my head around things, a little bit, but yeah, it's Mosaic's gonna. If I get more and more LXC containers, yeah, Mosaic's gonna come into play because at some point I'm gonna want a nice GUI for that too, but. Those are mine. Those are definitely my daily open source drivers, and I use those compared to proprietary options. Not because proprietary options cost money, because I donate money to a lot of these open source projects that I use a lot, because I want them to continue. But I do it because I love the concept of open source, and I love the concept that I can go and clone a repository, and I can dig through the code, and I can make changes if I want to and see what happens. And I've done that with Portainer, just on the front end to kind of see if I could change up the front end UI a little bit for things that I would kind of like to see in it. I don't keep those changes, but I love that I can do it, right? It's there for me to do if I want to. I love the velocity at which I get updates from most open source projects that are still pretty active. Things like this last week, right? Log4Shell and stuff like that came out, and it just, destroys a massive portion of the enterprise community when something like that hits. And the truth around a lot of enterprise software, and I'm not just generalizing it. There's some that can move really fast and do things really quickly, which is awesome. But a lot of enterprise software does not move fast. It's not like trying to turn around an aircraft carrier. It's like trying to turn around a fleet of aircraft carriers inside of a bay. Okay, it is not. It is a precision maneuver to do something like that, and it takes time and it takes effort. So the velocity at which open source projects move to me is just incredible. 99% of the time.
And you wonder, like, these guys are usually, sometimes you might have a team of maybe 3 people running like that thing on the app. So
yeah,
for them to turn around so quick, it's really, really cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. What are we looking at here, Scott?
That's the definition of the utilization of LXD containers. That's my LXD containers on one of my nodes.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, I'm getting there. But Docker still just, Docker makes it so easy to do stuff. Setting up that Pi-hole wasn't hard, but it definitely was harder than if I'd have done it with Docker. But I thought, this is a great opportunity for me to do it for an LXC or LXD container, and it does great. It runs no problems. Haven't had any issues with it. So, all right, I'm gonna bring it around to round 2 here. Let me get my notes back up. So round 2 is kind of the same thing we just did for round 1, but it's proprietary software. Chris, I'm going to let you start this one off for us, and we'll kind of make the rounds, and we'll end with Scott there.
Well, the reason why to use proprietary software is because there's no really good alternative or option in the open source environment. And basically, I'm using Microsoft Office because I have to change my files with my customers, and they're using Microsoft Office products.
Chris, what are you doing, mate? You stole one of mine.
And that's actually the only reason and the only thing where I really use proprietary software. The second part is actually the banking software, which I'm using, because also there's no really good alternative, which does support all of the different banks and different kinds of getting the data from them and then using the banking and online banking services, which is a German product here. It's called Star Office, I think. No, not Star Office, but Star Banking or something. But these are the only two proprietary software things I really need to use, mainly on an also daily basis. That's all what I'm using there. And of course, I said mostly I'm using Windows desktops, because maybe Scott will disagree, but I think Windows 10 is a really solid operating system. It's reliable, and you got used to the GUI. That's something which, of course, Microsoft is based on its success. So you get used to it for decades, and changing then over to a Linux distro, and then of course you have the big problem to find the right one, which suits you fine. I mentioned MX Linux before. I'm using it on one of my laptops, and I think it's just a great environment, because you can, even as a Windows user, you can use it as like the Windows desktop, and at the same time it's Debian based, so you have the basis of Debian, which is a stable environment. So I like MX Linux very much. And I made I made the fun and created a Windows-like environment in MX Linux, and I showed it to Windows users, and they couldn't find the difference. They couldn't tell me, oh, that's Linux. So they thought it's like Windows 10, and yeah, that's nice to have. But I like on Linux desktops that you have so much more power at your hand to administrate your environment. Let alone the shell is so much more powerful if you know how to use it. And yeah, I do a lot of in PowerShell and PowerShell scripts in my business, but PowerShell is not as powerful and not as good and not as solid and not as logically as what you have with the normal bash shell, which if you know one command and how the arguments are used, this is consistent over everything what you install, and that's so completely different in the Microsoft environment. So Microsoft has its positive things in the GUI itself, but on the command line, Linux is unbeaten. Yeah, that's more or less my information about that.
No, that's good. It's good information, and I've seen a few people in the comments too say the same thing about Office actually. So I've got a couple of questions, but I want IBRACORP to go first, and then I'll ask, because I want him to get through his list.
One thing I would like to add. I ran LibreOffice or OpenOffice at the beginning of my business, so I just wanted to save the license fees. Worked inside of the business and with my employees and everything absolutely fine, but the issues with exchanging files with customers which are Microsoft based is still there, and an issue. And I saw one of the comments, and which is I completely agree with, is the open source environment, the community needs a better, and I don't think that LibreOffice is bad, but it's still not there where Microsoft is with its automatic interchangeable things, which LibreOffice still lacks in some parts. Yeah.
Gotcha. No, that's good. All right, IBRACORP, I'm ready.
All right, mate. All right, here we go. So round two. What do we got? Proprietary software. If I was going to pick one, if this was going to go back to the first question, as a daily Termius, an application called Termius, has been absolutely phenomenal, especially with working through SSH on so many different servers at the moment. It's just been fantastic, man. I'll admit it's a bit expensive, even by my standards, because in Australian dollars it ends up even more, but it's worth it, man. I was swapping between computer, laptop, phone, all this stuff, and I could basically work on SSH anywhere, and it was a breeze. It would sync my settings across multiple devices, and really made it easier for me to work. So I haven't really looked that hard, but I haven't found anything open source that's done that for me. And it was shown to me by one of our admins, Hawks. He was a big user of it, and he got us all onto it. And I don't think I can go back. I think it's just
have a look at Tabby.
Tabby. Okay, we'll give those.
So, and I was gonna say, and I don't know if this is absolutely correct, but so I'm gonna call out another channel that I love to watch, and somebody hit me on it today on my Rocketchat server, but it's The Digital Life, and his name is Christian, and I believe he's German. He does some really great stuff. He does some great topics. Yeah.
His English is very German English, yeah, but he's German, yeah.
Yeah, he does some ads for a company that does what I think may be similar to what you're talking about. I'm trying to remember the name of the software off the top of my head. I'll look it up here in a minute while you're still going, but it gives you shell access and a lot of things like that, and it's all through the web browser. So I think it reconfigures itself to your devices and stuff. I don't know if that's what Termius does, but it sounds kind of like what he's using it for, basically, which is to get shell access to all of his different servers and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Just on the subject, I've had someone mention it in our chat there. Show Mill said, what about Adobe Acrobat, proprietary and no other alternate for most PDFs available from government or companies online? That's pretty interesting, because I know when dealing with lawyers or things like that, when I bought my house, for example, they give you those pre-filled PDFs that, have validations in them and document control. So, yeah, have you guys seen any alternative that would work as well as Adobe PDF or Acrobat, I should say?
I mean, I guess because I've never used Acrobat for making PDFs, I don't know what all it's got in it, to be honest. I'm sure it's a power user kind of thing. It's by Adobe, and I think they were the kind of the guys who said, here's PDF, but I know that, like with a Mac, I can turn anything into a PDF. With Linux, I can turn anything to a PDF. I think with Windows now, you can turn anything into a PDF. Now, when you need people to sign on certain lines and have digital signatures and stuff like that, there may be some advantages, with like Adobe. But I know, like on the Mac, on anything you send me, I can apply a digital signature through one of their built-in tools that you just get with it. So, yeah, I mean, like I say, I just don't know with full Acrobat. I think Acrobat Reader is what I always had to use, right? So with full Acrobat, there may be all kinds of cool stuff you can do that I just don't know about. But if there's somebody who's used it that's smarter than me about it, then I had to believe that it's probably, not a comparison out there.
I'm using Foxit Reader in the free version, and I use the feature of stamps. So, for example, I scanned my signature, and I can use it and stamp it on a PDF, or I use my normal stamp for my business and have it also in digitalized, and I can stamp PDFs online without printing them out and put a stamp on it and stuff. I'm also looking for an alternative on Linux based. Yeah, that's also something which is really which I really need, to be honest, for my daily.
That's a fair point. Yeah,
I agree.
That's awesome.
That's a fair point. What about you, Scott?
Works better if I take the mute off. Okay. So I just want to start out by saying that when we started talking about proprietary software, my cat fell asleep and started snoring over here. So I don't know why, but okay.
Cats can snore?
Well, this one does. This is a 13-year-old cat, and he's like 20-something pounds. So yeah, he snores.
I have 10 cats, and they can snore.
So I think in the proprietary software realm, my biggest nit has always been TurboTax. So for years and years, I've always run TurboTax to do my taxes at home. And there's really no equivalent in the Linux world. And everything that I've ever seen for tax preparation in Linux has really fallen short. And yeah, I know there's web-based tax preparation, but it's just not the same as running something like TurboTax. The other one is I've got 3 Logitech Harmony hubs over here, and reprogramming them often requires using Windows. And there really isn't, even though it's kind of a web-based tool, there's this program it goes through in order to do its stuff. And there's really no reasonable substitute.
Is it called
And
Internet
then
Explorer?
finally, oh, yeah, I think what it is fundamentally it requires Internet Explorer out there in the background somehow. You know, you never know. And I don't know what the deal is, but and I swear by the Logitech Harmony hubs. I realize that's going away now, which I think that's insane that they're doing that, because there really isn't a product to replace it. You know, everything else is a poor substitute. And then finally, well, I have a Garmin bicycle computer, and it occasionally requires Windows to do some of the things like add some of the add-ons and sometimes doing firmware upgrades. And you know, when vendors come out with stuff, they're always giving you buy some off-the-shelf piece of hardware. And it's frustrating when it has to fall back and absolutely require either Windows or Mac. When nowadays, since everything is essentially software as a service, why are we worrying about proprietary programs? Why isn't everything web-based in order to accomplish it? And that being said, I saw a frustrating thing a while back. I use a I'm trying to remember the garage door opener, you know, real common garage door opener out there. And their software, it's the Chamberlain software that they've got online. And recently what they did was they basically got rid of their website and they went to their mobile app. And there's nothing I find more frustrating than to have to pick up an Android phone or an Apple phone. And then when they retire their web-based interface. I mean, we're really talking about trying to be more transparent in how these programs run. And so I see it as being proprietary, not only when I require a particular operating system, but also when I require a particular device that I have to use. Don't 100%. Retrofit me into, you know, it's like I'm also quite a bit into home automation over here. And one of the things I find really frustrating is when people want to remote control everything with their phone. Well, give me a break. If I want to turn a light on in a room and I have to pick up a phone, find an app, and navigate in the app to turn the light on, why didn't I just get up and throw the switch? You know, so voice control is very important. And I think that as time goes on, we're going to find more and more types of things that are gesture related. And we're going to find more things that are related to knowing where you are in your space to be able to control things. So
absolutely, like I can imagine you walking up to the front door of your house. The camera recognizes your face. You make a special gesture with your hand, which authenticates who you are, or something like that, and the door opens up. I don't think that's too far fetched from what you're saying.
Unfortunately, some of the gestures you use, they just lock the door permanently and never let you in.
Depends what gesture you're using, mate. How many fingers are you putting up?
Yeah, right. So, you know, anyway, there's not a lot of proprietary software here. And the one thing, the key thing about this particular question is to keep in mind that we're very much into software as a service now. And so there are so many things out there that have become really ubiquitous with our daily lives that are, in fact, web-based. So being proprietary should mean less and less over time. And it shouldn't really matter what we've got. I've got my own theories. I honestly believe that Windows within the next 5 years is going to have a Linux kernel. There's too much development going on with things like WSL2 that really point in the direction of Microsoft trying to more or less divorce themselves of their proprietary Windows kernel because they're not making money off of it anymore. Companies like Microsoft and Google and Oracle, they're making money from software as a service that they sell. In fact, Microsoft's two biggest things right now would have to be Office 365 and Windows 365. So if they could get out of this desktop business, they would immediately.
I mean, if you guys already seen Windows 11, I'm running it as my main driver now. And honestly, when I first started it up, it just started to feel like Linux, the way they're going in terms of design. So
I have
even
it in a
from
QEMU
design point of view,
VM and it's happy.
yeah.
So are you happy you switched over to Windows 11?
Yeah, look, I haven't experienced any problems or anything so far.
That's good.
Knock on wood. But I've heard that some people have experienced a fair few bugs. So far, it's been good to me.
Nice.
But one thing I don't like and one thing I don't seem to understand with every iteration of Windows is that they're making it harder and harder to find administration tools and settings. I mean, we had the control panel, which was very intuitive, very easy to use. You could navigate it fairly quickly. Now you almost have to go through 3 different types of settings interfaces just to get to the old control panel because that's the only place that has the setting you're looking for. So I'm not quite sure what they were thinking when they went through that process, but hopefully they've just cut back a little bit on that hiding menus and options.
No, I you can see they are trying to reduce the control panel, from one iteration to the next. What I see, they want to get rid of the control panel completely, and it got reduced from time to time even more. So I don't think they're going to go back to the control panel. They're going to.
I agree, and I think that's one of the things that's probably going to keep pushing me towards a Linux environment, because if it's going to be that difficult to find options that someone like us would be looking for, it's kind of just defeats the purpose. It's not making it any easier for me. It might be easier for others, but it's not making it easier for me.
Yeah, with the control panel, you got to the point, and now you always use the search button, right?
Yeah, correct. 110%. Yeah.
Yeah. Which can't be the aim. Yeah, that's wrong.
Yeah.
I feel like they put all that research and development into the search, because when you search for something, it'll actually be pretty good and find something, even if it's a setting within a setting, it'll know what you're looking for, which is interesting. I mean, but they could have just left control panel as it is.
Yeah, but that's so old style Windows 95.
What about you, Brian? I think you were next up, mate.
You know, proprietary software is. This one took me a little while actually. When I thought up the question, I was like, okay, what am I going to say? I don't particularly have any proprietary software right now that I use in my personal life as a daily driver. Now I do have a Mac, and so I did come up with it. So when I have my camera on, which I turned it off because my stream keeps giving me warnings. So I don't know if that helps or not. But I'm going to turn it back on real quick. So behind me, you see this piano. I've had this piano for like 15 years. It's an 88 key weighted keyboard by M Audio, but you can't see it up here. But there's a MacBook Air sitting there, and it's connected to this monitor and this sound bar. And the reason I have that is because it's connected to this piano controller, and I use the GarageBand software so that I can play piano, because it's just one of the things that I like to do and enjoy doing. I'm not a great piano player by any stretch of the imagination, but I like to learn songs and play them just by ear, and then I sing along, and I have a horrible voice, so you'll never hear that, but don't worry. But yeah, I mean, GarageBand, I've tried open source stuff, believe me. I've tried Ardour, and I donate to Ardour, by the way. Somebody asked me in the chat earlier some of the things that I donate to. That's another one I donate to that I didn't put in there, but ardour.org gets money from me every month as well. Even though I'm not using their software, I donate because I know that improves that software, and it has improved a lot even since I first used it. But I've tried several different ones that I can use through Linux, especially for just sounds and doing things. And I write music, and I create music. I guess the better way to put it. I don't write it anymore, but I create it. Yeah, I have that set up, and that's probably I wouldn't say it's my daily driver because I don't get to use it every day, but GarageBand is probably one of the most proprietary pieces of software that I use. But one of the things that I really, really like about it that Ardour is getting close. It's not there yet, but it is super close. But I go into the GarageBand system and I say, I want more sounds. And it just downloads all of I don't know how many gigs of sounds it is, but it downloads all of their sound files, which are really good. I can use a lot of the sample libraries that are out there from like Spitfire and a lot of the other companies that make some really amazing samples and stuff. And then creating tracks and putting tracks together and mastering tracks in GarageBand is super easy. I don't use like Logic Pro or anything like that, but it is really, for me, very easy. And in Ardour, it's a little bit more of a clunky process still to me, and more of that is just what I'm used to as the workflow, I guess. But like I said, Ardour is getting really close to kind of having that same simplicity in their workflow. So that's definitely my proprietary thing. Yeah, I mean, for my work, like my regular job where I work for a company that makes enterprise level software, I use lots of proprietary stuff because that's what they tell me to use. So I use Word, and I use Outlook, and I use Slack, and I use all of those things, and then those definitely are my daily things during the weekdays. But if it was up to
it's not
me,
something you choose though, is it?
right? Yeah, I wouldn't choose to use those things. And where they give me leeway, I don't use the proprietary tools that they offer. But yeah, a lot of them, you don't have any choice, right? It's security issues, that they worry about from the IT side, and they say no, you have to use what we say, and here's our approved list, right? So I get that. So I use the things that they ask me to use, and but yeah,
Totally.
I mean, yeah, it took me a while to come up with something that just in my personal life that was proprietary, and I sat down about 3 or 4 days after I sent that first email to you and wanted to play, and I looked at it and I was like, oh, duh, here's one that I use that's proprietary. So yeah, so
spot on.
That's it. I'm going to turn the camera back off. Hopefully it'll keep my stream a little bit better. All right, that was just round 2, and we're like an hour in. So.
Brian, I'm seeing that we have a nice discussion going on about Scott's comment that he expects that Microsoft will change its kernel to Linux.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a nice topic because I also have some thoughts about that.
I'm happy to hear what you guys think about these things. I like I said, I love to hit all the topics and talk about those things. But if that's hot in the chat right now, then let's go through it for a minute. If that's okay, IBRACORP and Scott, if you guys have a little time, that's fine. If we don't get to all the rounds, we can always come back and do another one later.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Go for it.
All right.
My opinion, I totally agree with Scott. I'll disagree with one point, the 5 years. I think Microsoft I also think that Microsoft doesn't earn any money on Windows anymore. The enterprises may have some Microsoft Enterprise licenses going on, and which includes Windows licenses. That's maybe a part, remote desktop licenses and stuff like that. But they have a big problem at the moment. On the one side, they were definitely only Intel based or AMD based, whatever you want to call it. And now ARM is getting on the market, and they're having so much issues to get a Windows on ARM running, and it doesn't make sense for me. It doesn't make sense for them if to develop for Intel and for ARM, whatever comes in the future, RISC-V or whatever, if the Linux community does this already for them. We have a Linux which is more or less hardware independent, yeah. Of course, it would be the easiest and the best way for Windows to really switch over to the Linux kernel. And I also agree that I see some signs that they're pointing that way, but I don't think that it is possible for them. And even, sorry to interrupt myself, but even their cloud services are sometimes in parts of it are based on Linux servers. That's interesting to know. But on the other hand, I don't think it's an easy step, and it's not a step which is foreseen in maybe 5 years. I see it in the future. I agree. No, it's your part to comment on that.
IBRACORP, you have thoughts on that?
Look, I work in IT as well. I work in the education sector, and I think I agree with you guys on that. I don't see it changing too soon, but as Windows is obviously trying to change their tactics, I think to capture a different market, they will change. They will adapt because I think their previous model, and I think Chris mentioned this before, this previous model of it's a user-friendly, user interface-based approach. You know, we just make it look nice and easy. It's going to turn a lot of people off because people that even that if you've just been using Windows your whole life, things you were familiar with, they're changing the whole concept around. So it might prompt other people to start looking into other options, which is good. Hopefully, we get more of those Linux distros that make it easier to approach. We've got a cat on screen now.
So I said this in my last live stream, actually, after I think it was not too long after Microsoft showed Windows 11. Maybe that was the live stream before this. I don't know, but you know, I said that just looking at Windows 11, and I'd looked at Pop! OS, and I'd looked at a couple of others that were having some updates coming out, and they all looked almost like the exact same desktop, the exact same experience. You know, everything that you saw in them was so similar. I mean, it was just the slightest little tweaks and changes. And I agree. I don't think it makes sense for Microsoft to keep going. So I don't feel like we're on different pages now. I don't know if I could say 5 years. I'd be impressed if they had switched it in 5 years. I think the issue that Microsoft's going to run across is the enterprise. And like right now, I know there's enterprise companies out there that are running COBOL based software, that are running VB6 based software, and those things don't run on Linux today. You know, and if they do, somebody did some amazing engineering and they should be selling their services. But, you know, okay. I mean, this is that thing where you can't just get people to switch, right? These enterprises are on these things because they don't want to switch. They're stuck, and Microsoft keeps it going. So.
Yeah, but
a historical point of reference.
I'll give you an example. Even IBM is switching from their own OS 390 to Linux.
Sure.
More and more. I'm just in a project where we're changing from Oracle database from IBM DB2, and it'll be running on in a Linux SUSE Linux environment, which means this is exactly what SAP is currently supporting. So the switch on enterprise is also getting to the point that they're using Linux as a server.
Yeah, I just had a community member comment on the video saying Azure's most used cloud OS is Linux.
It is, yeah.
I haven't fact checked it, but if that's the case, yeah, I mean that's already a great point to be at.
So, and here's one, Chris. In the past couple of months, I heard the news story about the German government moving all of the government desktops over to Linux. Can you comment on that?
I can give you a big thing about that.
Munich.
Munich, exactly. Thanks.
Just remember, we've got work tomorrow, right, Chris?
Yeah. Well, it's 2:30 here at the moment. In the morning. Bavaria or Munich itself made the decision to switch over to Linux. They called it Minux, like Munich Linux. And they stuck a lot of effort and also money into this project. And I don't know if they were just stupid or not really greatly organized, but they didn't really get to the point. Because every change you do, every migration you do, you have to take the users with you. And this is something I think in the IT is mostly forgotten. you think about how you change from one technology to the other and have the same data there and stuff like that. But if you don't inform the users at the beginning and take them with you on this travel, they won't like it. They don't like any change. They won't like it if they change from Windows whatever version to Linux desktop, even if it's even easier to use for them for the daily work. Uh, if you don't take them with you. In any way, fact is, Microsoft and the lobby from Microsoft more or less made the offer to have the headquarter of Microsoft in Munich, but they more or less told them they will stop the headquarter and move it somewhere else if they continue with this Linux project. At the same time, we had also a change in the government of Munich, and they got back, and now they're running in a pure Windows environment again. So we have a European project called Gaia X, which is supposed to strengthen the IT of Europe to get more independent of great players like China and the United States. Of course, with a focus of cloud services like Office 365. So they're putting billions of euros into this project. France is there. Germany is one of the leaders of that. And the first thing what they did, they invited also outside European companies to join this project, which Microsoft did at start.
Sorry to interrupt,
Yeah,
guys. Am I coming through clearly on your end?
Yeah, you are.
Yes.
Sure. And so this is also now more or less putting it into a standstill because they are putting so much effort in putting some problems into the Gaia X project from Microsoft,
So,
stuff like you can't do that and stuff like that. So no, there are plans to get more independent, and of course this will be based on open source. And by the way, one of the big players in Gaia X is Nextcloud, for example. And this will be some alternative, but one big player from France, the VPS from France, just got out of this project because they were not satisfied about the outcoming. So
hey,
yeah, there are
Chris.
some things. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Give me just a second. IBRACORP, did you have some connectivity issues there?
Yeah, it's still having some issues in this Jitsi instance for some reason.
Okay. I hope it's not going down. I hear everybody else okay, so I wasn't sure what was going on. But
No, it's just all jittery for me. But I can play everything else fine, so I'm not sure why that's happening.
Okay. Well, so I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to get back to the topics real quick to finish the roundtable, and then we can come back to some discussions if that's okay with you guys. Let's see here. So this third one, so round three, basically, we'll start with IBRACORP on this one. In fact, so I'd like to hear something you'd like to see a good open source alternative for that you don't feel like there's a good solution for it today, or you haven't found a good solution for it today.
Okay, so didn't we cover that one, or am I missing something?
Well, that was round two was like proprietary only.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So
no,
it's
right.
up to you. Yeah,
My
I mean,
apologies.
if you want to go with the same answer, that's completely fine.
No. Yeah, okay. Well, as I was saying to Chris earlier, he stole one of my topic answers. So thanks, Chris. But that's all right, mate. One of them was Microsoft Office, so he made a very good point about that. Honestly, I've tried to use the Google equivalent. I've tried to use open source equivalents, and they just don't feel the same. They just don't feel the same. I go to use them, they don't feel as powerful, and they don't feel as compatible. And unfortunately, in most of our work environments, I'm sure you guys might familiarize with this, but they're still using those applications. So then you have to worry about conversion and file formats and things like that, which can be a bit tricky. especially with the Google ones. I find that even Microsoft Office files going up into Google, they don't present the same. Excel is a perfect example. Couldn't run formulas and things like that we had programmed in our spreadsheet for competition winners. So I had to
Yep.
actually load it in Microsoft Excel. And the other thing is Google Drive. I've tried Nextcloud and I just can't stand it, quite frankly. I found it so slow. I found it very slow, very bulky for what it was. In comparison, of course, I'm only when I'm comparing it to something like Google Drive.
So when you
So
run Nextcloud, are you running it? Are you using their instance, or are you running it yourself? And are you running it like in Docker, or how are you doing that?
I haven't used a hosted instance of it. I've always tried to self-host it. We're currently working on getting the perfect Nextcloud install happening. So that's one of our videos that we're working on at the moment. But even that, in our testing and our development phase, we're having a lot of hiccups along the way because we want to make it work for people who may not have used it before. So I think a lot of people can relate to how unfriendly it can be if you don't know what you're doing. You can find a trip along the way and then you're kind of stuck there for a while. So you end up having to reach out for resources. Whereas you don't have that problem with Google Drive. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. I find when I run Nextcloud in Docker, it drags, and I don't know if that's a Docker thing or if that's the way that I'm setting it up somehow or something like that. But if I run it on native hardware, it seems to be very performant. So I don't know if it's resources that I'm not giving it in Docker or something like that. That's why I was asking that question. So I was curious
Have
on
you
that
looked
one.
at something
I,
like something like CryptPad?
well,
I haven't, no.
Yeah, so for things that I use as file portals that are self-hosted, I use I'm trying to remember. I use utransfer.io, which I self-host. I kind of like it. It has a little bit different function. CryptPad is more of a little bit more interactive. And then, well, I've even been known to use, lest I say it, Pawn Drop.
well, I'm hosting Nextcloud on its own dedicated VM. It's not in a Docker container. And if I save something on one client, mostly in a minute later, I can have it also on the second client. So it's almost immediately there. It's integrated well in the Windows Explorer because you can just choose whatever folder you want, and everything which is in that folder will be synchronized. And it's the same. I see the same as OneDrive or Google Drive. I don't see any difference there. It may have some issues if you have really if you fill it up. So if you have a drive with 500 gig of data and then you make a first sync, that may take some time. Yeah, but other than that, from the daily working, I have people who are not IT affiliates, just users, mostly it's iPad users and stuff. They use Nextcloud just to synchronize their data with my charity organization, and they don't have any problems whatsoever. So I really cannot see the problems you're facing. Sorry to disagree, but I see
No,
Nextcloud.
not at all, mate. Each to their own. That's just been my experience with it.
Yeah, and
Um,
like I say, that could be just
yeah.
again based on how you've experienced the other software, right? I mean, it's the same thing, right? When I talk about the music software that I talked earlier, I mean, it's all about what are you used to, and then what are you getting into, and how does it feel, right? I mean, if I'd gone the other direction, I might have hated GarageBand. Who knows? So I think it often comes down to that. But I saw a lot of people say that Office was definitely an issue, and Nextcloud may be kind of another thing where you're like, okay, I need a solution, but this isn't working for me. I think there's other options out there, and it depends on what you're trying to accomplish with those solutions too. If you're trying to do like online office stuff, I don't know. I mean, I feel like Collabora can run on its own, right? And it can be an online thing. I think OnlyOffice can also run online without Nextcloud, but you don't get the syncing, kind of stuff between machines and stuff like that. So there may be other
I
options.
just know with the environment that I work in professionally, with the Department of Education, they use Google Tenants and Google for Education and things like that, which is basically mandated at this point because every school uses iPads and Google Classroom. But I'm not sure about in your countries. If Google's managed to invade your country yet, but over here it's pretty standard, and I can assure you that teachers that I have to work with, they already struggle with something like Google Drive sometimes. So going from my experience, and if I was to show them Nextcloud, they would never use it. They just wouldn't use it. But that could also be a cultural thing. So
no, and I think it makes sense when you have to do things that fit your users. It's change management is hard for one thing with any user, but that can make a difference for sure. But I mean, hey, that's why we're here. We're here to have these discussions, so that's great. Any other ones there, IBRACORP?
No, nothing for me, mate. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna jump to.
I'm sure there's plenty, but
yeah, there's probably a lot. Chris, you got something specifically that you wish there was something as an open source solution, but you just haven't found it, or you don't like the ones that are there. They just don't feel right yet.
I think I always also already mentioned Foxit Reader or something similar like that. Other than that, I don't expect that the banking software world will change, but that's something that if you go to any, at least in Germany, if you go to a bank and they will even offer you some online banking software, and it'll be always Windows based.
Wow.
So if there would be something equivalent, even if you pay for it, it doesn't really need to be open source, but just so you have something which is platform less, so you can use it on Linux, Mac, or whatever. That would be great. And it's the problem with the dominance of Microsoft Office is not that the alternatives are not as good. I think if everybody would be used to use LibreOffice or OpenOffice from the beginning, so using their macros and their programmability and their features, I think that will suit 99% of the people. The problem, what I really have, is that if I have to exchange files from one to the other, it's Office files, and then you have some features which are in a specific Microsoft file, like Microsoft Excel, or sometimes I have some calculation issues in Word, where I have a spreadsheet inside of Word which does some calculations. It just doesn't port over to LibreOffice. So that's the biggest issue. And I think Scott, you put it in a comment. If Microsoft really works on a Linux version of their own Microsoft Office, well, that I would be willing to pay for it, just to keep up the exchangeability, because it's the reality of today that the majority of business people are using Office files, Microsoft Office files. But these are the things I would wish that we overcome for the open source or Linux community. So everybody has the choice which platform he wants. If he wants to use his Mac or his Windows, because he loves Windows. And of course, the one problem what we have is go into a store, buy a PC, or even online. What is pre-installed? It's Windows. That's I think a major problem. You don't get Linux pre-installed. If that would be as fine-tuned as a Windows pre-installation, not talking about bloatware, which is also common in the first installations, more people would don't care if it's Linux or Windows. Okay, that's my
That's good. That's a good one. All right, Scott.
Okay, so of course I already talked about the TurboTax issue, but I've
Yep.
got another one that I think is really good, and that is that I have a hard time buying into the ecosystem for Apple. Yet I see Apple's done some really great technological things. Okay, and one thing I would like to see would be an open source version of Apple FaceTime. And I'm wondering at this point why someone has not reverse engineered that yet. You know, I don't really buy into the Apple ecosystem, but I have enough friends that use FaceTime, and a Linux FaceTime would be absolutely awesome.
So I love that answer actually, and I'm an Apple user. I mean, I use Mac products. My wife has Mac. My mom has Mac. Just because one, it's the supportability of it for my family is so much easier than Windows. Um, and Linux, I just wouldn't dare try to push on most of them. But iPhone's the same thing, right? I don't have to worry about one of them gets one kind of Android phone, one gets another kind of Android phone, one, third one gets another kind of Android phone, and I don't have any idea how to find the same setting in all four of them or whatever. So I prefer iOS devices for that reason because I'm their tech guy, right? But yes, I really do wish that Apple would branch out a bit with their software and make it available on other platforms. Even if it was FaceTime on Android or FaceTime on Windows or FaceTime on Linux, just because they do have some terrific stuff that they make and some innovative stuff that they make, but they intentionally keep it for Apple because they want you to buy Apple products because they make their money on their hardware. I mean, that's where a big part of their money comes from. They don't charge for their operating system. I haven't paid for an Apple operating system, ever that I can remember. It's always just come with the machine and then you get the updates. But if you want their pro software, sometimes that's a little bit expensive. But $300 for like whatever their pro video editor isn't that much compared to a lot of the pro video editing stuff out there. So when you look at it, I see why they do it to some extent, but I also don't like that they do it when I look at, I wish I had those tools here. iMessage is another one. I love iMessage. I think having it on my Mac and on my phone and on my iPad is terrific, but when I'm using my Linux machines, I want to use it on my Linux machine because I don't want to switch over to my phone. So totally see your point on that one, Scott, and I think it's a great point.
Yep. That's something that's really been difficult because when you see a program in one infrastructure and it's not available in the other, and even if they didn't want to develop for Linux, the real question is, why have they not webified that app yet? And a lot of people will say, well, there's plenty of alternatives. I mean, you could use Zoom or you can use um, Google
Hangout.
or some of these others. And right. And there's so many alternatives. But the real point is, think about it. Apple's always had kind of a closed ecosystem. And it's a shame because I think they could actually make more money and be wider appeal if they didn't feel they had to force everybody into the Apple ecosystem to use any of their products.
I like what Jason said. It's a lifestyle, not a brand. It almost is. That's true.
It is. It
is.
And that's the thing about operating systems, right? It's not what operating system is best. It is what is your religion? Because operating systems are a religion. If you sit somebody down and say, why do you run Windows, or why do you run Mac, or why do you run this particular Linux? Heck, the internet is replete with people that will swear by one Linux or another Linux.
Oh, yeah.
And all of us here on the chat clearly understand that, why distro hop? You can make any OS, any Linux OS, look any way you want it to look. Heck, you can make it look like Windows. You can make it look like Mac OS from a visual perspective. And so distro hopping doesn't necessarily make sense.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this Joshka fellow has just commented on the video and it says, all the negative aspects aside, next to awesome progress on Linux distros, projects like Nextcloud only offers own cloud, play a major role bringing Linux to the normal person. So I agree with that, and it's definitely a positive thing. So I don't want to cast just negativities on it. Just because I personally don't like to use it, I'm still happy that it's there being developed. I think you guys are probably the same. because that's the sort of stuff we really want to see keep going.
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. When you have the big thing that people forget is they always say, well, why are you branching off and making your own thing? Here's this project over here. Why don't you just go contribute to it? I agree. We don't need 10,000 versions of Jitsi Meet, but it's nice to have different options. You know, Nextcloud has Nextcloud Talk, and I'll be honest with you, if you're looking for something where you can call somebody and it will ring on their device, Nextcloud Talk does that as long as you set it up correctly. And that's pretty cool for me because Jitsi doesn't do that. I can't call my wife on Jitsi Meet. I have to set up a time to meet with her. It's a meeting software. It's meant to be scheduled meetings. I could send her a link and say, open this link up and meet me, right? But Nextcloud Talk, I can like literally hit her name and it rings her phone and she can open it up and we can have a video conversation just like FaceTime. So I think that's kind of cool. But there's other opportunities which makes competition, right? Which makes people say, I need to make mine better because I want people to use my thing, or I want people to know that mine can be as good as that. So I think there's so much benefit to having a lot of options out there. I think there's definitely times where you get too many, but something fits for everybody usually, which is great. No, go ahead, Chris.
Well, I'm running Nextcloud and Talk, but if I use, if you want to have a video meeting, I use Jitsi Meet because it's so much easier to use and it has more performance. Even having my own Jitsi Meet, not using the available free Jitsi Meet.
Right.
But what you can do, you can integrate Jitsi Meet into your Rocketchat.
Yep.
Which means you can send somebody a call more or less, and he gets a pop-up on his mobile phone. And then he can join the Jitsi Meet meeting too, and then it's like FaceTime too.
That's right.
But it's not as easy as Talk because Talk really lets you have receiving a call. Yeah,
right,
it's ringing.
That's
not
it.
Like a pop-up, got a new message, and the message says, "Please join me in this meeting." Yeah,
right.
So that's the difference there. But I agree that I would like to really, that's something I would like to have a change is. First of all, we have too many messenger platforms. So we have, we have.
Yep.
I admit I'm in Facebook because of my charity organization, and I have a messenger there. Then I have WhatsApp because everybody's using WhatsApp. At least here in Germany,
it's a very European thing, and Southeast Asia, I've noticed.
They use WhatsApp. Most of the people are you're more a mobile phone Apple based. We have more Android here, so FaceTime and iMessenger is messaging is not this has not this role here. But everybody's using WhatsApp. I hate WhatsApp because each time I'm part of WhatsApp, all my contacts are blown up to WhatsApp, which means actually I have to get permissions of everybody in my address book on my mobile phone that I give these personal informations up to WhatsApp, and that means I give it to Facebook, which is, I think, the worst thing I can do.
Amen.
Then we have Talk, then we have this, then we have Discord, we have this and that. I would like, and then we have Signal and stuff like that.
Yep.
I would like to have one centralized platform, and this should be open source, and this may also be self-hosted, so I can see, and I can be part of a community like I have. I think Matrix has something similar to that.
Yep.
So this is something I would have to, and I would like to have spread around to everyone. So the people who buy a new phone from the store have a pre-installed Matrix or Rocketchat app on there, and they just have to put in I'm here, and they're part of the community, instead of having Facebook, WhatsApp, or priority things like Apple environments. This is something I really have a vision in my future, because I hate this. And all this data is shared with third-party people, companies, and they make money out of this data. And this is something I really disagree with.
We got to fight the system, Chris. We got to fight the system.
Yeah, that's why I have my own Rocketchat, and we have our own Rocketchat servers, and it's so easy. it's my turn, or did I just hop in and take this in
Oh, well, I mean, you want another one after that?
You know, whoever wants to go. I'm happy. Yeah.
I'll just add a quick note, like to re-edit something I said earlier about a daily driver. I love Discord. Our community loves Discord. They find it very easy to use. I find it very easy to administer, and it's fantastic. It's got all the pitfalls that Chris is talking about, though, in the fact that we don't control any of the data going in it. At the end of the day, we're at their whim, sort of thing. But I do wish there was something as easy as that. I know Rocketchat's there, but I don't feel like it's as accessible, or at least as common. I know that Discord is very common now. It's become very trendy, so it's kind of everybody sees it everywhere with an icon. Find us on Discord.
Well, that's the
So
thing,
that's
right?
just my personal little. Yeah.
I think the thing that, and you hit it right on the head, right? Is it's not just trendy, but easy. I hate to. It's not a good word. I'm trying to think of a better word, but you know, when you say I've already got a Discord account and I'm part of this group, and then somebody says, "Oh, I've got a Discord channel." All you got to do is click on it, and it takes you to that group, and you're part of that group now. Oh, I've got a Discord channel. You click on it, it takes you to that group. Whereas with Rocketchat, there's Federation and some of that, but it's not quite as easy as that, right? Matrix, there's Federation. It's not quite as easy as that. You know, there's a lot of them out there that can do some really great things, but they're just not quite as easy as that. And that's what makes it appealing, right? Is people want ease. I mean, as much as you hear news, right, complaining, Facebook's spying on you, Facebook's doing all these terrible things, you know, they're using your data, they're intentionally giving you the bad news to keep you engaged and angry.
They're still using it, aren't they?
Sure.
Still using it.
That's it. But people are like, oh, I'm angry, but I'm going to go post about it on Facebook, right? I mean, so it's, you know, it's that thing where if it's where people are, it's hard for you to separate yourself from that if you want to have your message heard. And I mean, when I post my videos, the first thing I go do as soon as the video is available is I go post about it on Twitter. I go post about it on Facebook. I go post about it on LinkedIn. I go post about it on Mastodon.
Yeah.
I go post about it on Patreon. I go post about it on my Rocketchat. So, I mean, I go make like 6, you know, social media posts as soon as that video goes up, you know, to make sure that people know that it's out and ready. Because, you know, as much as I like Google, YouTube's terrible about notifying you about new videos. So it's just, one of those things. Yeah, you have to do it.
Spend a lot of time doing that.
Yeah, you have to do it to get the word out that you've got things available. And building up communities is hard. So I want to say one thing. The IBRACORP channel, 1,000 users, is that right, on your Discord server?
2,000.
2,000 users on your Discord server. That's, to me, incredible. Okay, I mean, I've got, you know, 100 and something on my Rocketchat server, but I'd say in any given day, it's 10 to 15 people might get in there. It's probably, you know, 4 or 5 of us on a really regular basis that chat. So I mean, you know, 2,000 users is just, to me, tremendous. That's amazing.
To be fair, I mean, that's 2,000 that have joined. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's that many that actually communicate common, but
sure.
Yeah, I never expected to get that big. We really wanted to just build a space. We tried to just make it a space. It's not even about our YouTube channel. It's more about a place that people can go have a chat and get some help with things, or offer help, or just feel welcome, because I felt myself, I didn't really feel welcome in a lot of those communities outside of ours. And so I said, oh, well, I want a space that's a little bit different, so people can come in with any sort of skill and knowledge and we can have a chat. But at the same time, it was a fine line not making it a tech support channel. We didn't want just, we're not there, we're all volunteers, we're all got our own things that we're good at. If you've tried something and you want some help, then we welcome you. We say, come in, you know, we'll see if we can help you out. But also helped us build relationships with developers in their communities, so that, you know, we could link to each other and say, we're planning to do a video on so-and-so, you know, would you like to have some input? And that way we can make sure we don't misrepresent your product, because we want people to find your open source app and we want them to enjoy it, and we don't want to show it off wrong. So I think that's something we do different in terms of other Linux communities or other IT communities out there. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, Brian. We'd like to see you in there a bit more.
I see it. I see the notifications. I get in there, I check them out. I don't always chat, but I do check things out and kind of look at it now and then. So it's pretty awesome. And yeah, I saw that announcement, and I was just like blown away by that. But I do like your thought on it. It's not a tech support channel, but the Rocketchat server that I run, it's the same way, right? I want people to feel that they can jump in and have a conversation. And if we can help, if you're having a problem, we will. If I can help, I will. I know Scott gets in there and helps a lot of people and gives lots of advice, which is amazing. And it just makes it such a great thing to have a community you can go into and just chat or just have a conversation or ask, hey, have you seen this, or what do you think of this, and get honest answers. And nobody's dogging on anybody. It's just here's how I feel about it, or here's what I think, or hey, I haven't tried it, tell me about it, those kind of things. To me, that's so how I learn. That's it. Yeah, like I'm learning every day. I'm not the expert, but if you come to me and you're trying to do something that I showed and it's not working for you, I'll do my best to help you troubleshoot it. My mind works in a certain way that helps me troubleshoot problems, and not everybody's mind works that way, which I totally understand.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And like that's the thing. People at the start had this misconception that you make YouTube videos and you must know all the answers. I don't know all the answers to everything, and I think I would be, that's not true to myself. If I've been corrected on something, like the other day, I thought I actually knew the answer on something, and I was wrong. So I said, that's good to know. I wasn't aware of that. I stand corrected. Sometimes
there's always somebody out here that knows more than you know. I mean, that's just kind of how it is.
Pretty much all these people know more than I know.
And just for the other people listening, you got to realize that we are not the end-all answers for everything. We have our channels. Brian's got his Rocket Chat. I've got my Rocket Chat. I'll get in jitsies with people to help them out on things. And I've got a good idea for the things that I do, and generally works pretty well. Matter of fact, when it comes down to it, Brian focuses on all this really fantastic open source software out there. But when it comes to me, I tend to go a little bit more in the direction of explaining the infrastructure. What are all the moving parts, and how do people combine these moving parts to start self-hosting things? So that's my tack, being a little different. And you'll find these channels we've been talking about out here, if you combine a video from each one and go across multiple channels, you'll eventually get all the answers you're looking for.
Absolutely. Yep, that's true. Very true. So
hey, I'm all excited about this bonus round here, because I've got some good stuff. Do we still have time for that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I want to do it. I want to do a bonus round. Can we each cover our thing in about 2 minutes? Anybody got a problem with that? All right. Nah. So since I've let everybody else go first, I'm gonna go first, if that's okay with you guys.
I don't think so, actually. I'm gonna let you mention it.
Come on, man.
Of course, mate. Go for it. Drop it in. Let's do it.
Let me find the right set of notes, because I done lost them. Maybe I do need to let somebody else go first. It's terrible. Here we go, right here. All right, number one. It takes time to self-host. Okay, that is the biggest thing that I can tell anybody. If you want to get into self-hosting, make sure that you have the time to dedicate to not just getting the software set up, but to maintaining what you set up and making it work well, or else you'll be miserable and you'll hate it. But if you're willing to dedicate the time that it takes, you're gonna love it, and you're gonna enjoy it. And that's number one. That's the first thing I can tell you. 2, don't be afraid of the CLI, the command line interface. It's so important that you're at least comfortable kind of reading and trying to understand what a command means, and then not being afraid to go and use it, and understanding that if you mess up, you can usually undo the things you mess up. There's very few commands that you can't undo. So definitely that. I'd say number 3 is going to be get familiar with networking, because these things that you self-host generally at least need some, what I'd call beginner level of understanding of how your network functions and how to move things around in your network and access things across your own network. That's going to be really important. 4 follows up on that, and that really is understand networking from how it comes in from outside your network to your home, because at some point you're going to be like, I self-host this stuff, but I want to reach it when I'm not at home. I want to be able to reach my home assistant system when I'm not at home and control my air conditioners and my lights and my gates and my, anything else that I need to control. So really kind of understand that. And then 5 is just don't be afraid to ask for help, but learn how to ask for help, because posting on a forum or on a Reddit channel or on a chat system and just saying I need help and not being specific and saying I tried to run this thing and it didn't work, that doesn't give us anywhere to start, and it's frustrating for the people who want to help you. They want to help you. I want to help you. But saying, I tried to run this thing and here are the steps that I took. I followed your video and I got to here, and then it gives me this error. If you can just give us that much to start on, a lot of times I'll be like, oh, I saw that error too. Here's how I fixed it. Sometimes I'll be like, never seen that error in my life. Let me see if I can figure out what's going on. Those kind of things. But yeah, if you'll be not afraid to ask for help, but learn how to ask for help properly, you will get all the help in the world, and I promise you'll solve problems. So that's my 5. I hope I didn't go too much over 2 minutes.
Could not agree with you more, mate.
All right, so let's jump to IBRACORP here.
Yeah, sure, mate. All right, so here's my 5. Pretty similar. I think we might have from the similar experience, but my first one is be prepared to learn, but enjoy the results. Because sometimes you're going to get frustrated. Quite frankly, you get really annoyed especially when you might be watching something or following somewhere and you're like, I don't understand. My screen looks different to this. Just take your time and enjoy it, because that's part of learning. And I find that eventually people come back and they're like, you know what, making that mistake was really, really useful for me. So be prepared to learn, but enjoy the results. Second would be scout around and find the best option. As we discussed earlier, the open source community is very vibrant with heaps of different applications and programs and whatever. In fact, there's a repository on GitHub dedicated just for linking them all in a sort of directory that you can go through. So have a look around. If one doesn't suit your fancy, you're not locked into it. You can look around for other options.
Absolutely.
Third one is set up a virtual environment and test it. Test stuff. If you're not too sure about it and you feel like you're not confident enough to run it on your main driver, then just set up a virtual machine and do it on there. Get to understand how it all works. The next one is reach out when you're stuck. Like you said, Brian, if you need help, there's actually quite a few communities out there, whether it's ours, yours, anywhere else. Sometimes the developers of a particular application have their own communities that you can go to. Just reach out when you're stuck. But on that note, just like you said, don't just ask to ask. And one of our moderators, I've had to make a bot reply for him because we have to link it that often. People come in and they ask a question just to ask a question, something they could have typed in Google, in other words. Instead of coming in and saying, hey guys, I'm having a problem with Jitsi. My problem is this, and I've tried this and this. What do you guys suggest I do next to help me figure it out? So that's a really important one.
Absolutely.
The last one is be open-minded to various solutions and donate towards their work. If you enjoy something that you use, if you enjoy something that we show off on our channels, look after the developers. At the end of the day, they're the people making it. So go buy them a coffee, buy them a beer, whatever the case might be. It's the only way we can keep this community, this open source future moving forward and developing. And we're big advocates of that, as are you guys. Hence why we're here.
Love it. That's 100% agree. Yep. Great list. All right, Chris, are you still with us? I hope you didn't fall asleep on us, man.
No, I'm fine. No
Okay,
problem there.
good.
I just cut off the camera because I see so much lag on YouTube. So I think I just wanted to save some bandwidth there.
Well, I appreciate it. You got it? I'm
well,
ready for your list.
I'm a bit different because actually I encourage the people. I think first of all they're great tutorials, like from guys like you, which really help to get over the point to say, okay, I'll do my self-hosting. That's the first thing. And actually, to be honest, it's so easy. That's my second point. To set up a Linux server, and I totally agree. Use a VM and just scrap it if you get stuck and start again. And there's so much help, and there are so many video tutorials or even step-by-step guides through putting in the commands, and most of the people also explain the commands, so that you learn so much if you do it by yourself. And the third point is containerization. So Docker, for example, or with the GUI help of Portainer, gives you so much an easy entry point. And that's what you are showing a lot of times, that set it up, see what happens, and you learn about this. I give you an example. I tried to set up Ophelia, okay, and then integrate it into the Nginx proxy manager, and it took me literally 3 hours to have my first MFA running on one of my websites, and I didn't expect 3 hours, and it was a night issue. I just got stuck and just continued and saw here and there where I had my problems. And the satisfaction I had after these 3 hours was so amazing. I just thought, well, Superman, you can do everything, because you understand why it didn't work, and you understand why it's working now. And the next steps are so much easier. So you can gradually come from easy stuff to more complicated stuff to really complicated stuff. And that's something that if you start once, you can't stop. I think that's really something. And the third point is you see the benefit that you're the master of your data. I think this is a very, very important point, because I don't want to be depending on third-party service providers. Mostly, if I don't want to pay for them, it means they're using my data for their business, for ads or whatever. And having it on my own environment means, to me, the data is also kept with me. I don't have anything that I couldn't share, basically. But I don't want it that everybody has the possibility to look into it, and that's what I totally disagree with, and that's why I really think self-hosting, try with small little things, set up a VPN. I'm using OpenVPN, by the way, which is so easy. This is something I would like to really emphasize in this round.
That's great. Do you mind if I add something to what you said there, Chris, real quick?
Go for it.
Yeah, just about the Ophelia part. I was the same as you, mate. And in fact, there was no guide for Ophelia until I made one. And the reason was because I went through what you went through, but it took me a lot longer because I had to try and read the documentation and rely on word of mouth. And when we finally got it working, I could see the benefits of it, and we were like, this is amazing, and other people need to know about this. And that's when I said to Brian at the time, I was just an everyday YouTuber, and I said, we're going to start a channel. We're thinking about it, and he's the one that actually encouraged us to make the channel. So thanks to you, Brian, encouraged us to get that channel going. And Ophelia was the first one off the rank that I thought people needed to know about. Secondly, that second point you made there about users, about people just giving it a go and asking for help and stuff, mate. Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. It was well said.
Yeah, so I posted in my chat, but I want to point it out that at least once each one of us at this point has said that whether it's in our own way or said the words, but self-hosting is addictive. So Chris just said it too. He's like that feeling he got when he finished Ophelia, like he wanted to do more. That's the feeling you get when you accomplish something. And self-hosting is one of those things. You just feel so good about it. And if you're enjoying that if you're enjoying that feeling and you're enjoying doing it, you're just going to want to do more stuff. And if you guys haven't been over to the self-hosted Reddit, please go over there. It's reddit.com/r/self-hosted all together. You'll see tons of people who share their dashboards just like these guys have been showing today. And it's people who, like, one guy was like, I just started self-hosting 3 weeks ago and look at my dashboard, and he's got like freaking 40 things running on a Raspberry Pi 4. So, yeah, it's addictive. Okay, it really is. So
Yeah.
definitely, if you haven't started, if you're thinking about starting, if you're wondering about it, if you've kind of watched my videos and thought, I don't know, or if you've checked out the IBRACORP channel and thought, well, I want to try it, but I don't know, or if I don't know if the time, seriously, the time is a thing, but once you've got it, I mean, you're going to feel so good. You're going to enjoy it. I really believe that. So I'm glad you said that too, Chris. I think it was important.
Just to encourage the people. For example, you set up Navidrome and you put on your own music. Yeah. Then you put a client on your mobile phone. Then you step in your car and you continue to listen to your own music, which is on your own server in your car driving around on a highway, whatever. And you say, hey, that's not, I'm Spotify, I don't pay for it, but it's my own data and it's my own environment, and it's just awesome to have this feeling. And I think
it's a proud moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this is only one example. Yeah, this is only really one example for all this.
Yeah,
that's awesome. All right, Scott, I'm ready. I'm ready for your 5.
Okay, so I think this is maybe a little bit different, but I would say number 1, spend time planning your infrastructure. I think a lot of people already kind of alluded to that. Number 2, use a managed network and design around VLANs from the very start. If you haven't discovered VLANs, you might want to watch some of the things on my channel.
I agree.
Thirdly, using a hosting device that can be powered up 24/7. It can be a rack mountable server. It can be a refurbished server. It can be an old beefy desktop. It can be a NAS, but select a device that you can keep powered 24/7.
I'd say, Scott, just to throw on that, a Raspberry Pi 4 with a good battery backup, just in case your power goes out. I mean, honestly, they're so low power.
And you're being a straight man, because number 4 is basically put your network and your hosting infrastructure, both of them, your network infrastructure, meaning your router, your switches, and your hosting infrastructure, that machine or machines, behind UPS power protection.
Yep.
You don't want, like, I live in Houston, and Houston Spark and Flash does exactly that several times a day, and it's not really computer friendly. And then 5th is get a domain name and use reverse proxy. And if you don't want to do that, learn IPv6. And I've got a few presentations on IPv6. The other thing is definitely go out and watch my video on replacing virtual machines with LXD containers, because I think you'll find it very enlightening about what you can do. And the most important thing out of all of these is you got to go visit and watch the great content on the IBRACORP channel, on the Open Source is Awesome channel, and on the ScottiBYTE channel, because those are like the best on the internet.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
We appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks,
Appreciate it, Scott.
Totally. Yeah, you're great, guys. Really.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah. Look, I think we're all we're just enjoying it. I think that's the most important thing. I really enjoy it, and we get to catch up with these conversations. It's really cool, man. It's really cool.
So one, thank you guys so much, Chris, especially. I know it's super late there. Thank you for getting on to do this. This is something I was really thinking about for a while, and I wasn't sure I wanted to do it, but I decided, end of year, end of 2021. This was supposed to be the better year than 2020. I'm not sure it's turned out that way, but I'll be honest. For me, it's turned out to be really great. My channel has grown. The IBRACORP channel, I've watched it grow. Scott's gotten out there, and he's starting to grow. You guys give me so much great feedback, and you give me so many great comments. I had somebody on one of my videos go, he just commented basically my opening line, which is, it's your open source advocate. And it just made me smile so big and so stupid, you know, that that I knew if anybody was sitting there watching me, they'd be like, what is wrong with you? But at the same time, you know, it made me feel good that somebody recognizes that line and that they understand why I'm there, and what I'm trying to do. And you know, I'll be honest, if you Scott had a great point. If you want a domain name, I highly recommend you go out there and do it. It's a little bit of cost, you know, 10, 15 bucks for a year, maybe. You can get them for less than that, but on top of that, I highly recommend going out and checking the IBRACORP video on Cloudflare. They've got a couple of them out there that are really good, and Cloudflare just offers some really tremendous stuff for protecting your domains and dealing with your domains on top of everything else. You don't have to buy them from Cloudflare. You can just kind of manage your DNS from Cloudflare, which is great. But seriously suggest that. I mean, Cloudflare offers some really, really cool stuff, and it's stuff that can make your life easier, especially when you're first starting self-hosting. To kind of get out there and just learn about that. Yeah, so I want to say that because those are some great videos, and Scott's got some amazing stuff on VLAN.
Just make that clear.
I am not getting paid to say any of this, guys. I'm getting paid by YouTube maybe if I put ads on it, but I don't usually put ads on my live streams, so you guys should be able to get this ad free even afterwards. Yeah, it's
no. Look, there's some great content getting around, so make sure you check all of our channels out.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate you guys coming in today. Thanks for having us. I really hope you guys have a good Christmas period and a happy New Year. And we'll see you for 2022. Hopefully, see how it pans out.
Whatever you celebrate, I just hope you have safe holidays around this time of year. And you know, New Year, whether you celebrate New Year now or Chinese New Year or anything else, you know, all these holidays come up this time of year. I want everybody to have safe, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, Happy Hanukkah, everything. You know, this is the time of year to be thankful for something, and I hope that you're all thankful for the things that you've got and the things that you can do. And I'm thankful for these guys for coming on and spending time with me, and I'm thankful for you all for tuning in every week when I put out a new video and for being patient while I stumble through some of my topics. But I really enjoy doing it. I wish I could show you how much I cut out to save you from having to hear me ramble so much, but I do really cut out a lot.
Hey, remember, friends help friends self-host.
That's right. Thank you, Scott.
That's nice.
All right, I'm ready to call it. I'm tired. I know Chris. I'm sure Chris is about to fall out of his chair. So
guys probably. All right, enjoyed it, guys.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day. Bye.
Good one. Bye.
All the best for you.
Thanks everyone for watching. We're going to be ending the stream now, and we'll see you in the next IBRACORP video.
Absolutely.
Yep. Thanks.